Is there such thing as an October surprise?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to say no.
This year, I feel like we are in the middle of a daily surprise in October.
I keep wondering when the aliens and the asteroids are going to show up.
That's a scary question to ask because 2020 has been so wild. So I'm like even scared to throw something out into the universe that could shake things up again.
We've had event after event in this year of pandemic that under conventional rules would have perhaps totally changed the political landscape.
And I think the thing about October surprises is that they work best when they reinforce existing thoughts about the case, right? Like that's when they hit people the worst.
I think if you go back to 1968, it's very clear that it looked for a long time that Richard Nixon was going to win. Johnson wanted to end the war, and he had pretty much of a deal. Nixon intervened. That was the surprise. And he told the South Vietnamese, hey, don't make this deal, because if I'm elected, you'll get a better deal. And by a whisker, Nixon won, had promised that he had the secret plan to end the war. He didn't end the war. It went on for another 5-6 years, I think.
I'm trying to remember the first time I heard the phrase October surprise. It seems to me that it might have been in the 1980 election. I was still in high school then, but at that time it was about whether the hostages being held in Iran might be freed before Election Day.
In 2000, the October surprise was probably George W. Bush's DUI being revealed right on the eve of the very, very late in the election.
The financial crisis of 2008, that sequence of events with Obama that month was critical.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the Access Hollywood tapes, of course.
Then candidate Trump bragging about, grabbing and sexual assault and kind of all that stuff. And then 30 minutes later, the Podesta emails began leaking, right? Like all these emails from one of Hillary Clinton's top aides.
So on October 28th, the surprise was that Comey had this letter that he sent to the leaders of Congress, and that completely unnerved the Clinton campaign. They ran a lousy campaign, let's admit it. She only had one issue, which was, I'm not Donald Trump. And so people didn't warm to her.
They thought she, you couldn't really trust her. Even some Democrats who voted for her said the same thing. And that's what those Podesta emails showed. And then when it came to, President Trump, people knew he was someone who bragged about all the women his women he had been with as a New York tycoon and media star. And so both of these things kind of drew people to their corners.
What's so interesting is the New York Times earlier that week, I believe, released the first sort of tangible report on Donald Trump's tax returns. And everybody thought that was going to be the big October surprise. Claimed he had claimed $915 million loss on his 1995 taxes and probably hadn't paid federal taxes for 18 years that followed. So that was a really big deal that month until Access Hollywood, just a few days later. And if you think about what we've experienced these last few weeks, we had a similar disclosure by the New York Times of Trump paying $750 in federal taxes, personal federal taxes, and followed by a debate, followed by, the first presidential debate, which was obviously incredibly, shaping in terms of how people are thinking about the race, followed by COVID.
The moment I saw the president's tweet about him having COVID, I thought, oh, here's our October surprise.
The lack of mask wearing in the White House and the lack of following health experts' guidelines, I guess one shouldn't be surprised that maybe a couple people in the White House got sick. So maybe that's why it doesn't feel like a surprise. It kind of feels more like that happened.
I think Trump is fairly desperate right now. He's on a clear path to losing the election. And he loves theatrics. Just look at the way he returned to the White House. And, I would not put it past him to come up with some kind of news-making event that he thinks might change the campaign.
I think the biggest surprise that could come out of this election will actually have to do with down ballot races. There are a lot of races that were close coming into the fall that we've been watching closely, but those are getting less close as each day passes. And so what people have not fully grappled with is the down ballot effect of an unpopular president. And that could lead to some races going in directions that will perhaps stun us.
To be a good reporter, in my view, is to always be open to surprises, to never get so consumed by the predictive game that you aren't open to and sensitive to what you don't know, what we all don't know. I think a lot of us in the news media made that mistake in 2016. Of course, the big surprise wasn't an October surprise. It was a November surprise on election night. We didn't, a lot of us, anticipate President Trump's strength. And in some sense, we didn't look at evidence that was there right in front of us, that he might be more competitive.
All I know is that I'm going to continue to be surprised. Even after 4 years of being in this job, even after 4 years of directing coverage, I still am surprised. And people tell me I shouldn't be surprised, but I still am surprised.
The fact that we're having this discussion, that people are watching and thinking about it, not an argument against doing it, but an argument against it succeeding. The answer to your question is, let's let the fat lady sing.